Hi there, welcome to this step-by-step tutorial on creating your own quilted laptop case. This project is perfect for protecting your device while adding a personal and stylish touch. I will guide you through each step from preparing your materials to sewing the final details with helpful tips along the way. While you can use a pre-quilted fabric for convenience, I will also show you how to quilt your own fabric for a truly personalized finish. Whether you're a beginner or experienced sewist, this tutorial will make the process easy and enjoyable. So let's get started and create something beautiful together. This laptop case combines functionality with style. Featuring a quilted design for added protection and durability, it includes a convenient closure with fabric ties, giving it a charming and handmade touch. The edges are finished with bias tape for a clean and professional look, while the fully lined interior adds extra structure and polish. Practical pockets are incorporated into the design, providing additional storage for essentials like chargers, mouse, or other small items, making this case as versatile as it is beautiful. To make this case, you will need main fabric. Choose medium weight and stable fabrics with minimal stretch for the best results. Polyester batting for quilting. Choose your preferred thickness depending on the final look you want to achieve. Take into consideration that thicker batting adds a plush protective feel, while thinner options create a less bulky finish. Consider adding an extra layer of foam for additional protection and durability. This is especially recommended when using thinner batting. For the lining, choose a smooth, medium-weight fabric that complements your main fabric, and choose a sewing thread that matches the color of your main fabric. Finally, the pattern. You will find it available below in the description box. It comes in two different sizes to accommodate a wide variety of laptop dimensions, and just so you know, I will be using the regular size for my 14-inch laptop. Before cutting, iron your fabric with enough steam to pre-shrink. Then pin and mark your patterns considering grain line, and cut following the decided size and the instructions listed on each piece. For the case body, you will need to cut the pattern from 3 to 4 times in main fabric, lining, and batting. If you are using a thinner batting or you want to add an extra protection, I strongly recommend to cut an extra layer of foam. Place the batting on a flat surface and lay the main fabric on the top of the batting with the right side up. Make sure you smooth out any wrinkles to ensure a flat and even surface. You can layer more than one batting layer on top of each other to achieve more thickness. Just be sure your sewing machine can handle the added bulk. Then secure the layers together with either fabric clips, basting, or quilting safety pins to prevent shifting. And using a ruler and a fabric marking tool, draw the quilting design on the right side of the main fabric. Since my diamond pattern will be 2 inches apart, I'll be measuring 2 inches from the corner up and 2 inches from the corner in. And then I'm gonna join those points to create a line. Using the width of my ruler, which is 2 inches, I'm gonna start creating parallel lines from that base line that I traced first along all the way. And then I'm going to repeat the same procedure in the opposite direction. In this way, I will create my diamond pattern. Also, you will find a pattern grid incorporated with the patterns just for you to transfer into the fabric. Sew along the marked lines. One thing that you can do to minimize the puckering is that you can start from the center of the fabric and working outwards. However, I just took my time and worked from one edge to the other, trying to maintain consistent stitch length and ensure that all the layers stay aligned. I strongly recommend that before quilting you test a small sample of the fabric, the batting, and the thread on your sewing machine, just in case you need to adjust the tension and the stitch length as needed to ensure even and smooth stitches and better results. Once my quilting is done, I'm going to remove my basting stitches and I'm going to trim any batting excess as needed. Now prepare the pocket by serging all four edges to prevent the fabric from fraying. If you don't have a serger, use a zigzag stitch or a pinking shears. Now fold the upper edge of the pocket down 1 inch towards the wrong side of the fabric and press to keep it in place. Then fold the lower edge of the pocket up 1/4 of an inch towards the wrong side of the fabric and press again to keep it in place. And next fold each side edge 1/4 of an inch towards the wrong side, aligning them lengthwise. Press again to keep the fold crisp. Then sew along the upper edge of the pocket to secure the fold in place. You can optionally add a second row of stitches as a decorative detail. Place the pocket on the lining fabric in the desired position. There is a pocket placement suggestion on the patterns that you can follow for best results. Remember to use pins to secure the pocket in place. You can also baste it if you feel more comfortable doing so. And now edge stitch along the sides and bottom of the pocket to attach it to the lining. Sew as close to the edge as possible for a clean look. At the top corners, reinforce the pocket by sewing a small triangle that connects the top stitch with the side stitch. This will add extra durability to the pocket's stress point. An extra pocket can be added to create more storage space. In the pattern, you will find the placement for 2 different pocket positions. On the second pocket, I added a middle stitch to create an extra division. Then lay the quilted main fabric wrong side up on a flat surface. Place the foam piece on top for added protection, and then position the lining piece right side up, effectively sandwiching the foam between the main fabric and the lining. Next, if you have not transferred all the information from your patterns, at this point you need to refer to them to transfer and mark the folding lines on the lining using a fabric marking tool, ensuring those lines are clear enough because you're going to need to sew on top of them later on. I will recommend you to use fabric clips to secure the layers instead of pins. And if you want to have more control over the pieces, you can baste around the edges. Finally, sew along the marked folding lines with a straight stitch, ensuring it penetrates all 3 layers, which will make it easier to fold the case into the final shape during the assembly because it will create the illusion of a pre-creased line. And just to gain more control over the piece when attaching the bias tape, I will run a stitch 1/8 to maximum 1/4 of an inch around the outer edge of the case. This stitch will not be visible once the bias tape is sewn in place, but it will help keep the layers secure and aligned while doing the process, while attaching the tape in place. Next, cut several fabric straps 1.5 inches wide and as long as possible from your fabric piece. Make sure you cut these pieces on the bias and take into consideration that then you will create a longer continuous bias tape by joining all these straps together. Join the bias tape strips together with right sides facing by sewing their ends at a 40-degree angle. After the straps are placed together, you'll notice a small excess fabric corner on each side. This indicates the starting and ending points of your seams, accounting for the seam allowance. Then sew along these diagonal lines as many times as you need to create the whole bias tape. Consider that the total length of the bias tape should be at least 62 inches. Press the joining seams open and trim any excess fabrics for a smooth finish. For ease and speed, I will use a bias tape maker. Make sure to select its size according to the bias tape width. A bias tape maker is a handy tool used to create evenly folded bias tape, and here I'm going to show you how to use it. Once your fabric is cut, insert the fabric strip into the wide end of the bias tape maker. Use your fingers and a pin to push the fabric in and then to pull the fabric out. Make sure the wrong side of the strip is facing up and then press the fabric as it comes out of the bias tape maker. pulling it through slowly while guiding the strip so that it folds neatly. If you find that your joining seams are creating bulk, just trim them a little bit. Reduce them to 1/8 of an inch, so they are still holding the piece, but they don't create the same kind of bulk. But in the case you don't want to use a bias tape maker, you can totally create your tape by hand. So what you need to do is just fold the tape in half with wrong size facing and then press it with enough steam to pre-crease it. Then open the fold and fold each edge of the fabric inwards to meet at the central crease line that we just created, and press again to secure the shape. When working with longer tapes, it will be helpful to use a pin to hold the fold. Then trim the bottom edge seam allowance to grade the seams, reducing the seam allowance of the batting and the foam layer to 1/8 of an inch. Do not trim the lining seam allowance or the main fabric seam allowance. This process is essential to reduce the bulk on the seam allowance and to make easier the process of installing the bias tape, also creating a better and more polished finish. Next, take your prepared bias tape and open one side, aligning its raw edge with the raw edge of the case. Make sure to place the bias tape facing the right side of the tape with the wrong side of the case, and attach it by stitching along the pressing or creasing line on the bias tape. Use this line as your seam allowance. Then understitch the seam, ensuring you catch the seam allowance underneath the bias tape. With the help of an iron, fold the bias tape over the seam to cover it completely and bring the bias tape over the right side of the fabric. Make sure you fold your bias tape in a way that it covers the previous stitch that we just did. And with the right side of the fabric facing you, edge stitch it in place to secure the bias tape neatly to the case. Now cut two fabric straps on the bias, each of 18 inches long and 1.5 to 2 inches wide, depending on the desired thickness of the ties. Fold each strap in half lengthwise with the right size facing, and stitch along the long edge using 1/4 of an inch of seam allowance. If needed, trim the seam allowance to reduce bulk. Then turn the straps right side out using a turning loop or a safety pin. When pressing the straps, position the seam line in the center and press flat for a clean professional finish. That area where the seam line is will be the wrong or the back side of the tie. Fold both open edges of the strap 1/2 inch inside and press to keep them in place. You can use some tweezers to make this process easier. Next, position the ties on the case according to the placement indicated on the patterns, facing the wrong side of the tie, where the seam line is, with the right side of the case. And repeat the same procedure in the other tie as well. Attach each tie by edge stitching along one of its ends to secure it to the case. I would recommend to follow a rectangle shape when stitching the area for reinforcement. Then trim the remaining edges to grade the seam allowance, reducing the seam allowance of the batting and the foam layer to 1/8 of an inch, as we did before when we attached the bias tape on the bottom edge. Now fold the case along the folding lines created in previous steps and press firmly to hold it in place. You can use some clips to keep the layers together, or if you prefer to have more control, base the overlapping layers together. And to clean the remaining raw edges, we will continue using bias tape. So start by leaving an extra 1/2 inch seam allowance at the starting point. And with right size facing, align the raw edge of the bias tape with the raw edge of the case and leave an extra half an inch of bias tape when you reach the end point of the edge. Attach the tape by stitching along the creasing line. Use this pressing line as your seam allowance. Understitching at this point is optional. Skip it if you prefer fewer visible stitches. Though it can help make folding the bias tape over easier, it depends on the type of fabric that you are using and the approach that you want to take. So it's optional but always recommended. To finish the starting and ending points, fold the bias tape in half, right sides together, and stitch it using half an inch of seam allowance, ensuring that the seam is aligned with the edge of the case. If your fabric is too thick, you can stitch 1/16 away from the case instead of aligning the edges. Trim the seam allowance to 1/8 of an inch and flip the tape inside out and push your corners out gently using your fingers or any tool such as a knitting needle, but avoid sharp items such as scissors to ensure that you don't rip your fabric. Then fold the tape over the seam, ensuring it fully covers the previous stitching. Secure the bias tape by stitching in the ditch, or for a cleaner finish, hand sew it using an invisible stitch, especially if the fabric thickness make machine sewing difficult. Finally, test the ties to ensure they can close the case securely and form a neat ribbon. If the ties are too long, trim them to the desired length. Then close the open edge of the straps with a straight stitch or sew it by hand for a cleaner and more polished finish, and repeat the same procedure in both ties. Give your garment a final press and enjoy your new creation. I hope you had a wonderful time sewing this project, and I will see you pretty soon for our next pattern. Have a beautiful day, and thank you so much for watching.